A very good afternoon to all of you. I am CA Pritesh Mehta, moderator of this webinar, and I welcome all of you for this seminar. And we are delighted to welcome you all in the webinar being organized by the Continuing Professional Education Committee of ICAI. It is my pleasure to be a moderator for a webinar on a very specific topic, Audit Trail and GIFT City Fund Management Entity. In a short while, we will start the webinar. First, I would like to apprise you about the CP committee of our ICAI. In today's ever-changing professional scenario worldwide, the biggest challenge to the professionals are to face is how to stay on the top of the game while adapting to the new requirements and the norms. Therefore, it is imperative to aim to be up to the offer unique guidance, influence others with their innovative approach and expertise. It is also vital to stretch old ideas beyond the traditional boundaries to create new perspective. In this context, continuing professional education committee facilitates professionals to maintain, improve, and broaden their knowledge, skill, and expertise required to achieve their professional goal through webinars, seminars, etc. The program for this evening is as follows. We are having two sessions of each hour. The topics are the first, audit trail, understanding the fine print. The second one is Gift City, fund management entity, in short FME.
Recording in progress.
Our eminent speaker will talk about two of the emerging areas of professional interest. So, I am glad that we are having with us in a webinar CA Pushpangar Khandelwal, Chairman of CP Committee with us. I would.
आवाज ही नहीं आ रही है प्रीतेश की आवाज ही नहीं आ रही।
हेलो
प्रीतेश की आवाज क्या टूटे? प्रीतेश लिंक का प्रॉब्लम जामनगर में है क्या दिल्ली में?
नहीं, मैं जामनगर ही हूँ सर।
We are able to hear Pritesh.
Yes.
So meanwhile, Pritesh, I think there is some connectivity issue. So, may I request Chairman CP Committee if, sir, we are audible, to come and, sir, give your welcome speech, sir.
Yes. Good afternoon, respected faculty for technical session. Kedar Savlaji, Chairman of the Jamnagar branch and moderator of this webinar, Pritesh Mehta ji. Second technical session, which will be taken by the Svetang Pandya ji, who is an expert in the gift advisory, Secretary of the CP Committee, Ajit Naj. To amongst you that the CP Committee, which is of all committee, our main role to update and grade the knowledge of the member, because what we are selling ourselves. So we have learning today may be irrelevant. We have to unlearn, relearn as per the requirements. On technology part of the CP committee, are bringing one app which update your attendance as soon you enter into auditoriums or a hall or where the program is being conducted. Last year, we did lot of programs for the members at large. We have organized workshop, national conference, RRC, and many more programs for the members. This year, CI is celebrating the 75th year of inception. Currently, we are having a 4 lakh members. Exact figure is 3,98,986 members on the 18th March, and we have 8,50,000 students. We are working as a student. This and foundation exam thrice in a year instead of twice in a year. So a student at large will be benefited. We are also this year constituted a committee AI in ICI. We are going to use a technology just like a chat GPT. Because of the use of AI for the members, if you want to draft an appeal for income tax or a GST or a tribunal, just you give facts first to the members and the AI will draft an appeal with all section judgment which is favorable for the SSC. For the students, we are also bringing a AI which help students to do a better utilization for their study. We want to know which year which question has been asked frequently, which topic is to be important subject. So I will guide you. I will not make much of time because the Kedarji here is an expert in audit trails, is from Deloitte. So I will not take much of time. Hand over charge to the Pritesh Mehta. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your inspiring and motivational words, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. I would like to introduce our today's first faculty, sir,
Thank you.
CA Kedar Savle, sir. I am just taking the brief bio intro of sir. He has more than 24 years of post-qualification experience. He has also experience in the process improvement, automation, particularly managing, monitoring, and reporting on working capital. He has been a facilitator at esteemed institutes such as our own ICAI, the Institute of Internal Auditors, IIA, and the Wellinger Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai. So I feel privileged to welcome sir, and we are proudly welcoming CA Kedar Savle sir for the first technical session. Sir, charge is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Pritesh ji, and thank you, Purushottam ji, as well as Ajit ji, for your kind support.
Not audible.
Happy
Not
to-
audible.
Is it better now?
It is audible now.
Please
Sure.
start the seminar.
Sure. Thank you very much, Pritesh ji, Purushottam ji, and Ajit ji for your kind support. And happy to present in today's CPEC forum on the audit trail agenda. I'm sure each one of you have already, had a lot of discussions on this topic. And I'm going to share a quick few slides to hold the conversation together. Yeah, hold the conversation together. You can see some. Is it better now? Yeah.
Yes, sir,
So-
is it better, sir? I think you have logged in by two systems, computer or mobile.
No, only one system.
Okay,
So,
so it is-
so thank you very much, everyone, for your time and attention. I think I'll break the session into two or three aspects. One, what the law expects us to do. What are the assumptions that people at times are considering from various conversations that we have been holding in the industry as well as with fellow practitioners? I would like to highlight a few assumptions and the risk associated to those assumptions. And as we speak, and as various managements are trying to put together the expectations coming in from this law, there are obviously certain management challenges that they are going through, and we will go through some of those management challenges. Not that we can do much about it as auditors, but that is at least good to know as to what kind of challenges the management may be having in implementing or in complying to these regulatory requirements, and a few conclusion points for us to mull over as we go through the first year of closure with this new regulation on audit trail. I'll quickly go to the section on what the law expects. And if you go through this table, we have two regulations which came in. One was for the accounts rules 2014, and second one was for the audit and auditors rule 2014. The accounts rule was applicable practically from 1st of April 2023, while the audit rules were applicable from 1st of April 2022. But the ICI implementation guide, which got released a few months ago, has clarified that even for audit and auditors, the rules will apply for a full-scale reporting from 1st of April 2023 itself, which will be commensurate with the reporting requirements from the management as well. And you can refer this in para 30 of the implementation guide in terms of the clarification regarding the dates mismatch between the account rules and the audit and auditor rules. As far as the applicability is concerned, it is applicable to every single company covered under the Companies Act of 2013. And it applies again if you are having a books of accounts which are maintained in an electronic system. These electronic systems can be multiple, like a Tally or a SAP or Oracle Fusion, Oracle EBS, Navision, Business Central, Infor ERPs. There are umpteen number of the Zoho books. There are umpteen number of accounting softwares that companies are either buying off the shelf or implementing them from various OEMs from the houses of SAP, Oracle, as well as there are homegrown application systems. So if you're using any kind of electronically developed application system to record your books of accounts, then these regulations will apply to you. If these books are maintained in a manual format, I doubt, frankly, if anybody does really maintain them manually. But technically, if you are maintaining it manually, then there is an exception that you can, not adopt this or not implement or comply to these regulations. In addition to that, the accounting software, it is mandatory now that every single application which is scoped in from a books of accounts perspective should have a audit trail enabled in it, which will track the who, when, and what. That is, who posted the transaction, when was it posted, and what was posted. Typically, that is the old values or the new values in case of edits, or maybe just the new values if it is a newly posted transaction. That this information has to be mandatorily captured for every single transaction or master data that typically gets posted in the application in relation to the books of accounts. What is also important to understand here is that large applications like SAP will be multifaceted and multifunctional. They will have various modules and submodules built into it, which will cater to the different business requirements across the board. And each of these requirements may not, or each of these functionalities may not end up into a generating a books of accounts entry or a accounting transaction. And you will have to identify these transactions as to what will apply or what will not from an accounting perspective. And those specific ones will need to will need to have an audit trail. Every single transaction sitting in an ERP which is scoped in may not need to go through the full requirements of audit trail. Also, another feature expectation is that each and every transaction that is recorded in these applications in relation to the books of accounts has to get logged, and this feature of log cannot be disabled or tampered with by the management. And there are minor variations between the accounts rules versus the audit and auditors rules. And that's why if you see in both of these columns, we have marked an yes or a not specified. which indicates that the regulation may not apply or is not covering that specific aspect of what is stated in the regulation. But if you look at it, there is a quite a bit of an overlap, because when something is said as should not be disabled, while there is a statement as should not be tampered with. So if you see, there is a lot of correlation between the two. So ultimately, if you look at it, the regulation expects the managements to set up the entire process of trailing the transactions, while the auditors to confirm that whatever actions the management have done throughout the year have sufficient enough to ensure that all the transactions that occurred in an organization are recorded in the electronic systems. And if yes, then they have an audit trail attached, to it. One last point before we go to the next slide. I think the preservation of the audit trail is also important. It is required to ascertain if the managements have preserved the audit trails for a period of 8 years, and that is again a prospective requirement. So it is not like you'll have to go back in time by 8 years, but as you cover the year after year after year, you will need to make sure that every year, for 8 consecutive years, the audit trails are maintained by the management in a proper manner to restore and to use if required. Right? I'll go to the next slide and we'll try and answer what are the key questions the managements are required to answer today to comply with the requirements of the audit trail. So the first and the foremost requirement is to ensure that each and every application which relates to the accounting or books of account related area has to get identified, and each and every transaction which will constitute that book of account has to get identified, and audit trail needs to be enabled for that. So one of the biggest challenge, and there are a lot of in large organizations today, they generally don't end up using one single system, but there are a lot of corollary systems which support or which act as a feeder systems to the primary accounting system or the books of accounts, where the general ledger or the subsidiary ledgers and the books are maintained. And that is why it is important to go through the entire ecosystem that an organization has from an IT perspective, and ensure that each and every IT application is evaluated to say, does it have any accounting implications? And what are the key transactions sitting in each of these IT applications, which will cater to that implication to the books of accounts and scope that in from an audit trail perspective? Right. The next big question is, has audit trail been enabled or configured for each and every of those identified transactions in the respective IT applications? Then the question comes up is each of these audit trail, does it have the who, when, and what been identified and recorded? Because there may be times when there may be a information available that there was a change, but what is important to know here is who made that change, when was the change made, and what was the change made. And a lot of times we have seen that clients do, or managements do apply generic user IDs to record transactions in many of the applications. And whenever you have these generic user IDs being used and not a named user ID, the who question, the who part of the entire log will come under question. So as we look at each of these, the managements will also have to ensure that even if they are using a generic user ID, they are able to place responsibility on an individual who probably is in charge of, responsible to carry out a certain transaction, and can be held accountable for the transactions that have got posted in the system. Similarly, when is a very critical item, because most of the IT applications do pick up the system date or the server date for recording when a particular action was taken. But if that is not happening, and if the IT applications are picking up a date which is on your laptop or desktop, which is being used for recording the transaction, or maybe the device that is being used for recording the transaction, and if these dates on these devices or laptops or desktops are editable, like if I can go into my system and edit the date what is being shown on my laptop, and if that is the date that is getting captured, then there is a high probability that I can backdate transactions, and that will not help serve the purpose of the audit trail. So as managements, they need to confirm that some of these security checks are well implemented, so that the when is captured correctly in the system. And similarly, the what part of it, that is the old values and the new values for every new transaction, or a change that may happen in an existing transaction, has to get captured. What is also important, and I just spoke about it also, is how the controls for enabling or disabling the audit trails and the accesses to do these enables or disables for the audit trail features are well controlled, and people do not have access to make edits, or even if those accesses are available, there is a proper track and trail in terms of if any edits are made in the year, to for what reasons they were made and why they were made, and for what period of time was the audit trail disabled if it was, and explanation as to why it was disabled, and a disclosure which will need to be done to the audit committee or those charged with governance as we go along. Right, I already spoke on the generic user IDs, but that's again an important point that needs to be considered in every single IT application that is considered as in scope. Also, has the access to the audit trail configurations been authorized and logged? That is again an important question to answer for the management as to how these logs are maintained and evaluated and monitored to make sure that all edits are authorized and they are known and they don't end up into disabling or tampering of recording of the audit trail in any way. Another critical point that is emerging is management reviewing these change logs after having logged so much of data. How is the management actually ensuring that if there is anything inappropriate, that is also getting picked up and considered appropriately from an accounting requirements perspective? That is something extremely important as we go along. Some of these aspects may also come up as part of your anti-fraud controls and will need to be evaluated to say, is there anything which tomorrow can affect your fraud detection and reporting mechanisms? Again, a direct changes to the database, as we spoke on applications, a change in the database, if it is possible to be done directly, it becomes important to understand these databases and log these databases for any kind of changes which are not routed through the application, but are routed directly in the database. Important aspect is you will also need to identify at each application layer whether a database exists separately or it is an integrated database. For example, if you go to a Tally application generally has an integrated database, and that database is not separate from the application. So you can't log in directly to the database of a Tally application and make an edit to a table level for a particular entry. It has to be routed through the Tally application itself, and that is where maybe a database requirement will get automatically eliminated, but in all the other scenarios the database will need to be looked into to say if there are direct edits possible, and if yes, are they also being adequately logged. Another critical aspect is there will be IT teams in every organization who will need access to these audit trails, because these audit trail tables do end up becoming very heavy and large as we go along, and these tables need to be adequately archived and maybe at times even deleted from the primary system, because otherwise they might put load on the system and affect the performance of the system. Now, that is where it is very crucial for the management to ensure this entire process of archiving the logs and deleting them from the primary application where it is getting created is adequately documented every time you are, taking action on those logs, so that there's enough trail available to say what was done, when was it done, and why it was done, and how the continuity of the records has been maintained by the management. Some of these actions will be important to substantiate that the audit trails are available throughout the year for all transactions that have been recorded in the accounting systems. Also, the management testing of IFC is extremely important, because some of the controls that we spoke on will come into the control metrics or the RCMs, RECMs that we're speaking about, and these need to be updated from an IFC perspective also to see how the controls are operational or not, and if they are not, then maybe reporting on that will be essential. And sometimes both from an IFC perspective also reporting may be necessary, as well as from the audit trail regulation perspective. So these things have to be kept in mind. And what are the auditors expected to do? Because we first saw what the managements are expected to do from enabling or disabling the audit trails, and here is what we have from an auditor's perspective, where the auditors are required to evaluate whatever management has done, in terms of identification of the applications as well as identification of the accounting events or transactions which need to be logged for its completeness. Has management covered everything that needed to be covered as part of these logging activities or not? should be ensured or should be evaluated by the auditors, and wherever they feel there are aspects which have not been covered by the management should ideally be discussed and recommended to ensure that there is a comprehensiveness of the coverage required from an accounting or books of accounts perspective. In case there are any elements which are not getting logged, auditors will have the responsibility to report on those elements which are not considered in the entire exercise as well. The approach that is adopted by the management for establishing, maintaining, and monitoring these requirements is also important, because if there are any gaps in these approaches and they affect the recording of the audit trail, that will need to be evaluated, discussed with the management, and reported if and as necessary. Right? Whether all the IT elements have been covered, we already spoke on that. Also, what is important is the management's methods of managing the changes to the audit trail enablement and assessing the impact of these changes into the audit trail. In case at any point of time in the year, let's say the management has taken a decision to disable the audit trail, let's say for a few days or for a week or something like that, the auditors will need to understand these reasons and also report saying that for a particular time period in the year, the audit trail did not operate, or the availability of these logs may not be complete. So those aspects will need to be evaluated and reported upon. The auditors will need to also perform testing and confirm the appropriateness of the various controls that have been set up by the management to ensure that each and every single transaction is getting trailed. And some of these controls can be in relation to disabling or deactivating the feature of audit trail, use of generic assigned user IDs, and if so, then the assignment of those generic IDs to the authorized individuals or the responsible stakeholders in the organization, ensuring that the audit trail configuration is completely authorized and any edits are tracked and monitored, and then ensuring that the adequate procedures are in place for enabling or archiving of the audit trail data to enable the record retention associated to it, and no tampering of the configurations and audit logs. So controls around these will need to be scoped in, evaluated, and tested by the auditors to ensure that they have been operational through the year of audit, and there are no exceptions that are required or that were reported, which needs to be evaluated from an audit trail compliance perspective. The validity, the effectiveness of the management's monitoring controls also need to be evaluated to ensure that the functionality was enabled and was active at both the application as well as at the database level throughout the year of operation. And last but not the least is the management representation, where we as auditors need to verify what representation the management is providing to confirm the all of the above from an audit trail perspective at the end of the year. So these are some of the expectations that the auditors are required to do from ensuring that the compliance to the law is met with. I quickly go to the assumptions risk. And I think one of the first and the foremost point I would talk about is on the high-end ERPs. A lot of times I've seen that managements as well as auditors do carry this impression that if large and high-end ERPs like let's say an SAP or an Oracle or various other like Infor or Navision, Business Central, maybe even Tally at times, if they are implemented in an organization, simply because of the large sized ERPs, the well established ones in the marketplace, as well as the longevity of these applications' existence in the marketplace, leaves an impression that audit trail is too basic a requirement, and these applications will have the necessary aspects of by default enabled in these applications. But that may not be the case. It may at times be a functionality which needs to be configured and enabled, which the management will have to carry out. It by default may not be enabled or may not be available also at times in some of these softwares. And that's why it is important that we do not assume that it will be available, but test it and confirm that it has been operational throughout the year and there are no gaps that need to be evaluated and or reported. I think the next big assumption is, or the challenge that we have seen is for the outsourcing of the applications. Today, a lot of clients, managements have outsourced applications either to third-party service providers, vendors, or to various other forms and formats, even to cloud. So a lot of times organizations have hosted their applications using cloud service providers, like GCP, Azure, Microsoft, or AWS, or even there are private clouds that are available. And you will need to ensure that whether it is an infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service kind of agreements that have been implemented with these organizations, who holds the responsibility to ensure that the audit trails are appropriately enabled and reported upon on a continuous basis. This is extremely important because any kind of software as a service outsourcing arrangements, generally you will see that the database maintenance is with the service provider and not with the management, right? And in that scenario, you will have to assess whether the service provider has implemented adequate controls to ensure that no changes are happening directly on the database, which is hosted and managed by them. Or in case there are any direct changes at the database level, the same are adequately logged and available for a view or a reuse as and when necessary, right? The next point is on software applications which are used for recording, and important that the database underlying these applications are also logged, because a lot of times you will see if the application has been outsourced, people only focus on the application and the database may not be really be a point of attention, and that's where it is important not to assume that if the application is covered, the database will be automatically covered, but it should be discussed and verified whether the database logs are adequately available or not. A lot of times I've got questions from the client saying that once an entry is posted in the application, I cannot go and make any changes to the application. If there is any change required, I'll have to pass only a reversal entry, and only a new entry will have to be posted with the corrected or the right information. And will this mean that the audit trail is not required? The answer is absolutely no. The audit trail is still required. Even if it is a reversal entry, you still want to know who reversed the entry, when and why, and what reason it was reversed, and what is the corresponding corrective entry that is also posted to that. And that's why it is important to trail each of this information and not again assume that if it is only a one-way transaction, then it is okay not to have audit trails enabled or available in the respective accounting systems. What is also important is the controls that are identified and tested for IFC. They may not be completely sufficient to address the requirements for the audit trails, and it needs to be evaluated. If there are any additional controls that need to be looked into, they need to be addressed appropriately and tested as we go along. I think one of the key aspects which have been in continuous conversations have also been in respect to the similarities or the expectations between IFC and audit trail. And IFC is now pretty much a settled regulation over the years, but one of the key differences between the two regulations or requirements is IFC is reporting is based on a concept of reasonable assurance, whereby I look at the population, typically take samples out of that population, test those population, and evaluate. If there are no exceptions that I have noted, then I say that the controls have been effective, right? That gives me a reasonable assurance to say that the processes adopted by the organization under various requirements, be it business or IT, have been adequately controlled and have been operating effectively throughout the year of reliance. But when it comes to audit trail, it is a fact-based reporting, not a reasonable assurance. And that is one of the key reasons why you will need to look at each and every exception that comes up on the various controls that have been implemented and tested for the purposes of audit trail. Like we spoke on generic user IDs, for example. If the generic user IDs are available and the roles and responsibilities are not adequately mapped, where I can hold an individual accountable for the actions done through a generic user ID, then in that case, the audit trail requirements are, will be not meeting the requirements. And that is why it is important to understand each of the generic IDs where the mapping is not done or the responsibilities are not assigned, and evaluate what kind of an impact that user ID can create on the environment and whether a proper trailing is required from that actions that are taken through those user IDs. Also, one of the key differences I would like to highlight between the two is the scoping of IT elements, because when we look at IFC, we also look at the materiality, and there may be certain applications which may not be scoped in simply because they deal with account balances which are below the material limit from which are below the materiality limit from an audit and IFC perspective. But in case of audit trail, that doesn't apply. Every single transaction which has an impact on the books of accounts needs to get trailed and needs to have adequate controls built into it. And that is one of the critical elements that need to be looked into differently from an IFC versus audit trail. Also, we spoke on the assurance that is required between a reasonable assurance versus a statement of fact between IFC and audit trail. The approach to testing, where in IFC we use a sample-based testing approach, but in case of audit trail being a fact-based reporting, we have to look at every exception and review and assess that exception whether it carried an impact on the audit trail or not. And last but not the least is the deficiencies that are there between the IT general control and the audit trail. There's a possibility that there may be a deficiency in IT general control which may carry an impact on the audit trail and or vice versa. And that's why every single deficiency, whether it is an audit trail deficiency or a deficiency for IT general controls under IFC, will have to be evaluated from both the perspectives, that is IFC as well as audit trail. These are some of the aspects that I would say we should not assume, but make sure that they are adequately considered and evaluated in every single instance or every single organization where we are the auditors, and then adequate amount of reporting should be considered. Some of the key management challenges that we have seen, and I'll sort of quickly highlight those. One is the scoping of the IT elements, which is not materiality driven, but needs mapping, one, to the books of the accounts definition, and second, to the accounting transactions that are posted through these IT applications, and whether these applications act as a feeder or a primary bookkeeping system and should be scoped in for audit trail or not. This is an important task and a key task, and as we are going more and more deep into every organization, we realize there are tons of questions that the managements do come up with in terms of why something should be scoped in or scoped out. And there are very interesting conversations also going on in terms of how a certain action is ending up creating an accounting impact or not creating an accounting impact, which will not need a trail to be created or enabled. And we all know how difficult at times it can be in terms of scoping. And from an IFC perspective, there are similar challenges from a audit trail perspective as well. Voluminous data logs, which need substantial storage. I think that's another critical element that managements are grappling with today. Every organization has its contracts in terms of storage spaces or infrastructure which is bought and used for storing of data and etc. And with the volume of logs that this requirement is generating in various applications, managements are trying to renegotiate their contracts with various vendors to enhance the storage spaces that they have prior agreed, or keep evaluating as to how consumed these storage spaces are, and at what point in time they will need to relook at the space shortage or so, which will need to be fixed. I think this is one of the critical aspect which has been impacting the management conversations. Also, what is important is each of these systems will have issues in terms of the performance and load balancing, and thereby lead to an availability issue in case the system does show performance issues, simply because of the large voluminous table logs that are getting created in the database, which doesn't help the system optimize its read and write time on the servers, and that's where the load balancing is taking a hit. These are the challenges what the management is going through. Also, like I spoke earlier, there are a lot of times long-term contracts with vendors, business partners, and service providers. And because of the increased requirements on audit trail, both not just from a storage perspective, even from a processing capacity perspective, and at times maintaining these configuration settings and the logs that we are all talking about, will need to be run through a renegotiation of contracts which are long-term signed. And any kind of renegotiation in such arrangements is not an easy task. It does take a lot of painful efforts to say how do we really renegotiate, keep the costs at a bare minimum from an organization perspective, and achieve the compliances that are required. I think another critical aspect is liaising with the support teams for implementation of the design solution. So there are a lot of times applications which are developed or implemented from third party service providers, and a lot of these applications will need enhancements or functionality changes to enable these logs in the system. And that is a long run process at times, may not be easy fix. Or also there are times vendors are supporting multiple customers, and making a change for one customer or customers from one country is a bit difficult for their systems which are deployed on a global scale. And negotiating those requirements with the vendors can become a daunting as well as a time consuming task for managements. Frequent monitoring of such voluminous logs, it's not an easy task because you can't really do it manually using end user computing solutions like an Excel or the likes of it. It will need at times a proper data handling as well as data visualization kind of softwares, as well as use cases will need to be defined to say how does the management pick up these exceptions and ensure that there is adequate monitoring that is being enabled on the logs that are getting generated. Ensuring appropriate retention and periodic backup of audit trails. Again, this is an extremely critical activity. And like I said, simply because of the volume of these logs, each of these activities, one, it's going to take more time, it's going to need more space, and it needs to be monitored a little more closely than prior. So these are some of the aspects that need to be considered from the backups of the audit trails as well. And last but not the least, once again, enabling the archival for these backups as per the statutory requirements. Because, like I said earlier, the requirement is not for 1 year, but to retain these logs for 8 consecutive years. And that's why you'll need to make sure that within the 8 years, even if there are system changes, upgrades, enhancements, new versions being released of both application as well as database, but these logs, whatever have been archived, over a period of time, they still become readable for a period of 8 years. And ensuring that for the managements will pose a significant challenge as we go along. Right? Although year one, it is still easy and simple, but from year two onwards, this last point will become a cause of concern for managements because systems will go through upgrades, will go through enhancements, will go through version changes and new patches getting implemented and etc. And how do you keep these logs relevant from the system changes and they are readable at the end of the day as and when needed. So that's the key asks or key aspects that managements today are grappling with to enable the audit trails. I think last section of the conversation, and last but not the least, but it is important that we maintain a comprehensive and a complete audit trail which will help managements and the auditors as and when required to track back in case there are any irregularities that are occurred in an organization for a financial year, or if there are any specific process breakdowns that are noted as part of your regular audit processes also, some of these aspects will become critical and important to evaluate from a from a from a controls as well as financial reporting perspective as we go along. And having this data handy to be evaluated will become quite helpful to understand what occurred in an organization and how that is in accordance to the accounting requirements on a continuous basis. I think what organizations also need to look at is beyond a simple compliance to a regulatory requirement, because if they want to, there is a lot of information that is available at hand, and with adequate monitoring automation that can be considered by managements, they will really have a very, very value-added inputs that can be possible to be generated from these logs, and which will help management have a better control on the operations and the overall management of the business on a regular and continuous basis. I think as we go along, managements have shown commitment in taking lead on some of these requirements and showcasing their sense of transparency as well. And wherever we have seen that the managements have been communicative enough to show the transparency on what and how they are doing or where they are having a challenge, and discussing those, we have found that there have been adequate solutions also which have come up through these discussions to ensure that one, compliance is maintained or achieved, and secondly, there is enough information passed on to those charged with governance or the audit committees to have them comfortable in terms of what is being done to meet the regulation and beyond that as well. I think what is also important is the investigations or any unforeseen events that happen in an organization. The regulators, the management, the audit committee, and the auditors, each and every single stakeholder in this hierarchy, will want to have more and more information to assess the root causes of a certain action being taken or not taken, and pinning the responsibility on who, what, when, what was done or not done. And from that perspective, it is important to have these logs and be able to read or retrieve these logs at the right time to ensure that there is adequate coverage for the organization that is maintained. I think despite all these challenges, what we see today by the management, I think one of the key advantages of having the audit trail as we go along is one, very clearly an increased level of accountability, because each and every action is getting tracked and monitored and trailed. And it does give a high level of accountability for the managements to place, reliance, as well as for auditors to substantiate if there are any aspects that need additional information. Detection and prevention of frauds, as the perpetrators get to know that there's a lot more trailing being done and the information available at fingertips, where their actions may get detected or will get detected in a matter of time. There will be some amount of pressure to ensure that these frauds are minimized, or at least they are prevented or detected on a timely manner. Possibility of a more detailed audit, I think this is something, and I would also link it to the concept of 100% audit, where we are not doing a sampling approach, because that has been a point of discussion across the board with the amount of analytical tools and technologies that are available in the market, from visualization as well as analytics, including Gen AI. That today the concept of sample based auditing is under question, to say, do we really need to rely on sample based auditing, or it should be 100% auditing that needs to be considered using these tools and technological solutions. And that is where a more detailed audit can be possible, to really pick each and every aspect of the business and say whether it has been adequately accounted or not. And wherever there are aberrations, they can be picked up and analyzed, either by internal auditors or by statutory auditors as they go along. I think timely identification and correction of errors. One is frauds, aspect that gets covered. But what is more important than frauds is also the genuine errors and omissions that may happen, and which may or may not at times carry a material impact to the books of accounts. But if these errors can be detected and corrected on a timely basis through the monitoring solutions that can be put in place, that will be a huge value add for the management as well as the statutory auditors, to rely and be more transparent on the books of accounts that we all are signing upon. And last but not the least, absolutely, the adherence to the regulatory requirements is extremely essential for every organization, to ensure that they stay on the top of the regulations that are being defined and applicable. And there is no better way to comply with all these requirements than otherwise. Let me take a pause in case there are any questions or any other aspects that you would want me to speak on. But this is the last slide, and this is where I will take a stop.
Surely, sir. Thank you very much for your insights. We are having a few questions from our participants who have joined this webinar. Sir, first question is, what is the role of auditor to ensure trail is maintained by the client in the accounting software?
The management will have to ensure that the trail is enabled and maintained. The auditors have to evaluate whatever management has carried out, how sufficient or complete it is, and will it meet the purpose given by the regulation for ensuring audit trail is enabled for all transactions in the accounting in the organization. To meet that requirement, the auditors will have to evaluate whatever managements have carried out, so that and I'm sure a lot of times it goes as a consultative process, where managements have come forward and discussed with us as to whether X is the right decision or Y is the right decision. And We also participate in those conversations to evaluate and better understand the management's view on certain aspects and provide our inputs to it also to enable the management take the right decisions so that tomorrow and managements do want these consultative approaches to make sure that if there is any kind of additional aspects that they need to consider, those are identified on a timely basis and not at the year end. So my suggestion would be discuss all these requirements with each of your managements and understand what actions they are taking or what they are planning to take as we go along to ensure that the audit trail is enabled on a continuous basis.
Yes, thank you, sir. Sir, another thing is that if there is, in case an application and database being separate, what are the controls to be verified for the database of audit trail? And another is there any checklist available to get the information or clarifications to be obtained from the management?
Sure. So I'll answer the first question in terms of what are the controls to be looked into in the database. I think first and the foremost thing you need to understand is how the technology works between the application and the database and what kind of users who have access to the application, whether they also have access to the database and in what manner or in what capacity. Is that a read and a write kind of access or only a view access? Also, there will be a few privileged users who will be having access to the database directly, and these privileged users will for sure have access to edit at the database level. So you need to figure out what are the users who have access to databases who can make an edit, whether they are normal users or business users or maybe privileged user IDs, and then see how the logs for each of these category of users have been enabled at the database level and maybe do some test transactions, maybe on a test environment or the production environments, to confirm this understanding that if an edit is made by any of these individuals will get adequately logged in the database and will be available in the trail for a later view that may be required. The second question you had was how do you identify? I think that's again, I will go back to the first question where you will need to discuss with the management and the IT teams of the managements to understand the technologies that are deployed and how they are interacting or coordinating between each other, and then decide on what may need to be tested and where it needs to be tested.
Yes, I think, sir, the next question is also you have tried to answer. The next question is enablement at the database level, which is not feasible, then how to cope up with the requirements? I think.
No, so if database level enablement is not feasible and there are certain databases where these functionalities may not be available, there you will also need to evaluate, or rather I would say the management will have to evaluate if there are any third party logging softwares like a PIM, privileged identity management, or PAM, which is privileged access management. If some of these softwares can be deployed or used to record the logs for actions or changes that are happening at the database level. So there will be some workaround that will need to be, enabled by the management. In case there is nothing possible and the management has not done anything, considering the regulation and the way it is stated, we will have no choice but to go ahead and report it in the financial statements on the other matters where the reporting on audit trail is required.
Yes. Sir, one another very fascinating question from one of the participants, that particularly slide number 10 is practically not possible to implement. Sorry, it would be grateful if you can comment upon.
Sorry, what is the specific way? I can re-put that slide on the screen if required, but I'm not clear on the question that is there.
Slide number 10, practically not possible to implement.
No, so these are the challenges what I've been talking about that the management has implementing the audit trails, right? So, which out of, is there any specific bullet out of this which is not clear? I can sort of reiterate that, but otherwise I'm not clear on the question that is being asked.
Sir, it is just the question that particular slide number 10 is practically not possible to practically implement. I think the concern may be that what challenges can be there and how it can be cope up to practically implement.
So, a lot of companies today that we work with have implemented audit trail despite all of these challenges, right? So, it is not like these challenges make it impossible to implement. What is important is sometimes the management's intention and the support from the IT applications and the relevant IT teams to enable these requirements in the respective applications or databases in a manner that you navigate through the challenges and try and achieve the end result. There may be small misouts, like in one of my clients where we saw that the database level logging for the privileged actions is not possible. Now, there are two privileged IDs in that particular organization where the logging is not possible, right? So we will probably end up reporting on that at the end of the year to say that actions done by these two user IDs at the database level is not available, because we will also have to ensure that we are reporting the facts of the matter. But other than that, everything else is enabled despite all the challenges in terms of the voluminous logs or the storage issues or whatever else. The management has been able to find solutions as of now for each and every of these challenge. But that one aspect of database logging for two of the generic IDs is not been enabled as on date. So there the management has not been enabled, and the management also has been planning or discussing to report it to the audit committee to ensure that there is transparency and they are aware of the matter, as well as they have discussed that with us as auditors to make sure that we understand and decide on how the aspect is going to be reported upon. Right? But these challenges may at times restrict management from achieving the end result. And if that is the case, as auditors, I don't think we have a choice here but to report on those matters.
If sir, if in a big industry there are if firefighter users who need to be given access, then what is the position for the same to check the trail?
Sure. Typically, firefighter user IDs are enabled through the SAP GRC, solution, which helps users, organizations to manage the access requirements on large SAP instances. Now, in case there are firefighter IDs that are being used, typically in GRC there is a solution available to enable the logs whenever a firefighter ID is being used in the SAP environment. These logs, you should figure out how they are getting preserved by the management for a future use. Also, whenever a user ID logs into the primary SAP application and makes an edit to an existing transaction or master data, or maybe debugs a transaction, or goes to the table level and makes a direct change to the tables, or using SM3031 kind of transaction codes in SAP, then all of these options, there is a possible way of logging them in SAP through two or three different routes. And we need to ensure that the management has enabled the logging activity for all those two or three routes, so that any action that goes on either through a firefighter user ID or through a direct access to SAP will get logged in the SAP itself. And then the GRC logs will be over and above the SAP logs for you to fall back on as we go along.
Thanks a lot, sir. I think you have tried your best for the providing the solutions or your expert comments on the questions as raised by the participants. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Pritesh.
Considering the next session time frame, there are certain questions which may have to pose and have to go further for the webinar. So it's time that I formally convey a vote of thanks to CA Kedar Savle sir for providing from blueprint to fine print for the audit trail. And thank you very much, sir, for visualizing the entire process from a source to the financial statements and the compliances and the requirements to be taken care by the auditors. On behalf of the CP committee of ICAI, I extend the wholehearted gratitude to you, sir, for spending your valuable time and insightful journey for the topic. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Pritesh ji, and thank you everyone for the patient listening.
Now it's time to have the next session. One of the uh, uh, in vogue gift city. Yes, very good. Good evening, Svetang sir.
Good evening. Good evening. Pritesh ji, good evening.
Yes. So, sir, we are commencing for the second topic today. That is a gift city fund management entity. Right,
Yes.
sir?
Yes.
Sir, before commencing the session, let me have a small introduction of yours to all our participants. Mr. Svetang Pandya, sir, is a commerce graduate and a fellow member of ICAI with 23 years of experience in this profession. He has 20 years of additional teaching experience in the fields of chartered accountancy course, and under his guidance and mentorship, more than 350 students have become successful chartered accountant who are working across the globe. He has held leadership roles and has been the fortunate in articulating the group philosophy. So, sir, on behalf of CPE committee, we are welcoming you for the session. And
Thanks.
the whole charge is yours, sir.
Thanks. Let me start sharing my screen, first of all, with my presentation. Okay. Now I think everyone able to see my screen. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Actually, before starting what is fund management entity, FME, and gift city, one thing I need to explain what my conviction is regarding all these things. In next 15 to 20 years, if India will go to become a global economic leader, whether it will be first, second, or third, in any circumstances, if there are top five companies are there, at present, like Reliance is there, TCS is there, on all these type of companies are there. But after 15 and 20 year, I think if top five companies are there, then minimum 2 to 3 companies are from Gift City. What I want to prove is what is the significance in next 15 years regarding Gift City is possible to measure from this point of view. Out of 5 companies, there are at least 2 companies will be from Gift City. Second thing, and their structure will be fund management entity retail. अब जो मैं ये कहना आप सबसे चाहता हूं कि भाई जो फंड मैनेजमेंट एंटिटी रिटेल है वो कितना बड़ा बिग पावर होने जा रहा है, वो समझने के लिए प्रेजेंटली क्या 5 प्रॉब्लम्स इकोनॉमी में है और वो 5 प्रॉब्लम का कितना बड़ा सॉल्यूशन गिफ्ट सिटी ने निकाला है और किस वजह से बिजनेस इतना बड़ा अगले 15 साल में डेवलप होने वाला है, वही मेरे टॉपिक का एक बेसिक पार्ट है. हमें पहले प्रेजेंट प्रॉब्लम वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट इज द एक्चुअल प्रेजेंट प्रॉब्लम्स आर देयर. एवरेजली एवरी इंडियन टिकट साइज ऑफ सेविंग्स इज 10 to 15 lakh. जो कोई भी पर्सन है मिडिल क्लास, तो अगर उसके पास 10 से 15 लाख की सेविंग्स है, तो अगर आप सोचेंगे तो उसके पास कोई ऑप्शन है ही नहीं एक्सेप्ट म्यूचुअल फंड्स. हाँ, वो एफडी कर सकता है, गवर्नमेंट बॉन्ड्स ले सकता है, लेकिन जो म्यूचुअल फंड में रिवॉर्ड्स मिलते हैं वो पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू एवरी पर्सन गोस टॉवर्ड्स म्यूचुअल फंड, और मार्केटिंग भी अच्छा भला चलता है कि म्यूचुअल फंड सही में सही है। सही है वो तो ठीक है, लेकिन अब हमारा डिस्कशन ये है कि म्यूचुअल फंड सही में सही है या नहीं। तो पहले गवर्नमेंट क्या प्लान करती है, तो 10 से 15 लाख टिकट साइज वाले जो कोई भी पर्सन्स है, वो पर्सन्स के पास क्या चॉइस है, सिर्फ अगर वो म्यूचुअल फंड में ही पैसा लगा रहे। तो ये पिछले 20 साल में इंडिया में क्या हुआ वो समझाने के लिए डेटा हमने जनरेट किया हुआ है। 2003 में 1,21,000 करोड़ was invested in mutual fund. It was increased to 7,46,000 in 2013, and at present it is 50,77,900. And actually this data is of 31st December. But every month, uh, mutual funds getting 50,000 crore to invest in mutual funds, to invest in stock market via mutual fund. अब एक ही जगह पैसा जाने की वजह से क्या दिक्कत हुई है, तो ये स्लाइड में मैं दो चीज इंपॉर्टेंटली प्रूव करना चाहूंगा कि ये जो एक्सपोनेंशियल ग्रोथ हुआ है उसकी वजह से लोगों को रिटर्न मिला है। लेकिन रिटर्न मिलने के लिए दो पॉसिबल रीजंस हो सकते हैं, एक तो परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ कंपनीज और दूसरा होता है हो सकता है सप्लाई ऑफ फंड। तो यहाँ परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ कंपनीज कम पार्ट है, सप्लाई ऑफ फंड ज्यादा है। अगर 50,000 करोड़ हर महीने म्यूचुअल फंड को मिल रहा है और उसको यही इंडियन कंपनीज में पैसा लगाना है, तो ड्यू टू डिमांड ऑफ फंड अवर वैल्यूएशन इज इंक्रीजेस। इन दैट केस एवरी वन गेट्स प्रॉफिट। बट वो प्रॉफिट के लिए ये समझना जरूरी है कि एक्चुअल परफॉर्मेंस है या सिर्फ सप्लाई ऑफ फंड की वजह से हो रहा है, ये एक बात हमें समझनी पड़ेगी। दूसरा हमें समझना ये पड़ेगा कि जो 50,77,900 रुपीज आर देयर, इट इज एक्चुअली 70% सेविंग्स ऑफ इंडियन पॉपुलेशन। जो कोई भी नॉर्मल इंडियन पैसा बचा रहा है उसका 70% म्यूचुअल फंड्स में लगा हुआ है, और ये पैसा रियल इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ का पार्ट ही नहीं। अगर आप सोचेंगे कि आपने रिलायंस के शेयर खरीदे, तो आप रिलायंस के शेयर के सेलर को पैसा दे रहे हैं, आप रिलायंस को पैसा नहीं दे रहे। आप टाटा स्टील के शेयर खरीद रहे हैं, तो आप टाटा स्टील के सेलर को पैसा दे रहे हैं, टाटा स्टील को पैसा नहीं दे रहे। तो एक्चुअली ये 50,77,900 रुपीज इज नॉट इक्वल पार्ट ऑफ इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ। अगर हमारा 70% सेविंग्स इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ में पार्टिसिपेट ही नहीं कर रहा है, तो अगले 20 साल में जो हमें नंबर वन बनना है और नंबर वन इकोनॉमी या डेवलप इकोनॉमी बनना है, तो हमें इस पार्ट को इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ का पार्ट बनाना पड़ेगा। अगर हम नहीं बनाएंगे तो उसका कोई फायदा होने वाला नहीं है। तो मेन हमें यह समझना पड़ेगा कि व्हाई गवर्नमेंट इज गोइंग टू डू समथिंग फ्रॉम गिफ्ट सिटी। तो गिफ्ट सिटी में इस चीज का एक सॉल्यूशन लाना था कि जो फंड इन्वेस्टेड है उसको रियल इकोनॉमी में डिप्लॉय करना है, सिर्फ उसको स्पेक्युलेटिव बिजनेस में यूज नहीं करना है। बाइंग ऑफ सेलिंग ऑफ शेयर फ्रॉम बायर्स एंड सेलर्स इज नॉट एक्चुअल इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी फ्रॉम इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ पॉइंट ऑफ। अब ये जो दिक्कत हो रही है कि हर महीने 50,000 करोड़ रुपया एसआईपी थ्रू म्यूचुअल फंड थ्रू स्टॉक मार्केट में आता है, तो अब मान लीजिए कोई आदमी हर रोज 6-7 किलोमीटर चलता है और कई दिनों से चलता जा रहा है और उसको यू टर्न आता ही नहीं है, तो कन्याकुमारी से स्टार्ट करेगा तो वो कभी ना कभी तो श्रीनगर पहुंच जाएगा। अब वो श्रीनगर सिर्फ नहीं पहुंचा, अब तो वो चलते चलते मंगोलिया को भी क्रॉस कर चुका है। ये बात हम इस स्लाइड से प्रूव कर पाएंगे। हमारे जो इंडिया के 19 सेक्टर, एक्टिव 19 सेक्टर्स है, ये सेक्टर्स का एक पीई है। मैं जानता हूं कि हम सीए कम्युनिटी के लिए पीई बहुत इजी टू अंडरस्टैंड है, फिर भी मैं एक्सप्लेन कर दे रहा हूं। पी का बेसिक सिंपल मतलब ये है कि अगर आपको ईयरली 1 रुपया कमाना है तो आपको कितना रुपया इन्वेस्ट करना पड़ेगा। तो रिटेल सेक्टर में अगर 1 रुपया कमाना है तो 119 रुपया इन्वेस्ट करना पड़ रहा है। ये प्रेजेंट वैल्यूएशन है, 31 दिसंबर के दिन ये सिचुएशन थी। अभी तो उसके बाद भी इंडेक्स और 700-800 पॉइंट बढ़ चुका है, तो ये कंडीशंस और खराब हो चुकी है। समझाना ये चाह रहा हूं कि अगर 119 पी पर पूरा सेक्टर काम कर रहा है, आप दुनिया में कभी भी इस वैल्यूएशन को सस्टेन नहीं कर पाएंगे, आप कितनी भी मेहनत कर लीजिए। और रिटेलिंग सेक्टर का बेसिक आइडिया ये है कि आप प्रोविजन स्टोर बेस्ड धंधा करते हैं, कंज्यूमर प्रोडक्ट्स आप सेल करते हैं, और उस बिजनेस में कुछ भी आप कर लीजिए, 5 लाख रुपए अगर कोई प्रोविजन स्टोर प्रॉफिट करता है तो उसका वैल्यूएशन कोई भी आदमी 10 करोड़ देगा या 10 करोड़ से ज्यादा देगा, ये वैल्यूएशन ये एक्चुअली तो 12 करोड़ वैल्यूएशन देगा, ये हम मतलब यहाँ निकाल रहे हैं। तो उसको अगर हम कन्वर्ट परसेंटेज में करते हैं तो 0.83% उनको रिटर्न रिटेलिंग सेक्टर से मिल रहा है। अगर हम वर्ष जो परफॉर्मिंग सेक्टर है मेटल एंड माइनिंग, तो मेटल एंड माइनिंग का भी पी 20.35 है। अगर मेटल एंड माइनिंग का पी 35 है और 20.35, तो वो भी रिटर्न आपको लेस देन 5% दे रहा है, 4.91%। तो यह मैं एक ही चीज प्रूव करना चाहता हूं कि ये जो प्रॉफिट we are getting from mutual fund, it is not due to performance of the sectors or performance of the company। ये हमें प्रॉफिट मिलने का एक ही मात्र रीजन है कि हमारा इनफ्लो कंटिन्यूअस चल रहा है। जो हमारी फाइनेंस मैनेजमेंट की जो जिस किसी ने भी स्टोरी की हो, वो सॉरी स्टडी की हो, उसमें ये स्टोरी हर किसी ने सुनी होती है, मंकी बाय सेल थियरी। क्या लोगों ने मंकी खरीदना शुरू किया 1,000 दिया, 1,500 दिया, 2,000 दिया, और उसके बाद सप्लाई जब खत्म हो गया तो और डिमांड रखी कि भाई मैं 5,000 में मंकी खरीदने के लिए तैयार हूं अगर अवेलेबल हो, लेकिन सप्लाई तो अवेलेबल ही नहीं था। तो वो जो मंकीज उन्होंने 1,000 रुपए, 2,000 रुपए, 3,000 में लिए थे, वो मंकी उन्होंने 4,000 में बेचना शुरू कर दिया 5,000 की डिमांड रखने के बाद। और फिर वो लेने आए नहीं है, मैं जस्ट एक्सप्लेन आपको कर रहा हूं। वही स्थिति हमारी म्यूचुअल फंड थ्रू इंडियन स्टॉक मार्केट की है कि जब तक 50,000 करोड़ हर महीने आ रहा है तब तक सब मजे में, लेकिन जिस दिन इनफ्लो ऑफ फंड कम हो गया उस दिन ये वैल्यूएशन को सस्टेन करना प्रॉब्लम होगा। तो इस प्रॉब्लम को हम इस तरीके से समझ सकते हैं कि 2008 में मार्केट क्रैश हुआ था, 2020 में भी मार्केट क्रैश हुआ, लेकिन उस वक्त मार्केट गिरने के बाद विद इन 2 और 3 मंथ्स उसने रीगेन अपनी पोजीशंस कर ली और उसके 1-2 साल सबको बढ़िया रिटर्न मिला। जैसे कोरोना के वक्त गिरा, उसका बेटर रिटर्न जिसने भी उस वक्त इन्वेस्ट किया वो अभी प्रॉफिट में है। लेकिन अभी अगर जब गिरता है तो हम उस वक्त रीगेन करने का रीजन ये था कि हम वैल्यूएशन पर थे। अब वो वैल्यूएशन पर थे वो साबित करने के लिए मैंने ये स्लाइड बनवाई है। ये स्लाइड में अगर आप ऑब्जर्व करेंगे तो जो ब्लू लाइंस है वो 2013 का पीई है और जो रेड लाइंस है हॉरिजॉन्टल लाइंस वो 2023 का पीई है। तो अगर अदानी 12 पीई पर था और अगर वो गिरता तो उसको रिगेन कर लेगा वो प्राइस, लेकिन अगर अदानी 143 पीई पर है, अब वो गिरेगा, गिर के भी अगर वो 60 पर भी आता है तो भी वैल्यू बाइंग नहीं है। तो अगर हम स्काई हमारी जो प्राइसिस है वो स्काई हाई नहीं, हमारी प्राइसिस स्पेस में है। अगर कोई चीज स्पेस में है और गिरती भी है वो तो वैल्यू बाइंग नहीं बनता है, और वैल्यू बाइंग नहीं बनता है तो रीगेन करने की डिफिकल्टीज बहुत बढ़ जाएगी। तो गवर्नमेंट एक चीज समझ चुकी है कि एक तो जो हमारे 50,000 करोड़ जहां जा रहे हैं वो इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ में पार्टिसिपेट नहीं कर रहा है, और एक ही जगह जाने की वजह से वैल्यूएशन दिन प्रतिदिन बढ़ती ही जा रही है। एटलीस्ट 15 दिन पहले सेबी के चेयरमैन ने खुद ये डिक्लेयर कर दिया कि हमारे वैल्यूएशन प्रॉपर नहीं है और हम ओवर वैल्यूड है, और उसी दिन अगर आपको पता हो तो अच्छा भला मार्केट ने क्रैश किया था। तो अगर सेबी चेयरमैन खुद कह रहा है कि हमारे वैल्यूएशन हाई है तो हम ऐसा सोच सकते हैं कि वी आर एक्चुअली ऑन अ फाइनेंशियल न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब। और इस स्थिति को अगर हमें और खराब करने जाना है तो हमें 50,000 करोड़ की वजह से और हम पैसा, अगर हम 50,000 करोड़ की जगह और पैसा डालते जाएंगे तो ये प्रॉब्लम दिन प्रतिदिन बढ़ता जाएगा। तो इसका एक ही मात्र सॉल्यूशन है, और वो सॉल्यूशन ये है कि कुछ ऑल्टरनेट क्रिएट करना पड़ेगा कि जो इंडियन एवरेज इन्वेस्टर को अपॉर्चुनिटी प्रोवाइड करे और उसको अल्टरनेटिव ऑप्शन मिल सके। तो पहला प्रॉब्लम हमारा म्यूचुअल फंड का कंटिन्यूअस इनफ्लो और ओनली इनफ्लो फ्रॉम इंडिया, ये हमारा सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है और हमें इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ करना है। दूसरा हमारा प्रॉब्लम है इंडिया में फंड्स की कोई कमी नहीं, लोगों के पास पैसा है जो म्यूचुअल फंड में है, अभी इफेक्टिवली यूज नहीं हो रहा है। सिमिलरली हमारे पीएसयूज के पास सरप्लस फंड है, हमारी म्यूनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन के पास सरप्लस फंड है, गवर्नमेंट एजेंसीज के पास सरप्लस फंड है, ट्रस्ट के पास है, सोसाइटी एसोसिएशन के पास है। अब इनके पास जो सरप्लस फंड है वो भी जाता कहाँ है? गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटी में जाता है, वो भी फिर बैंक्स के पास जा रहा है। अब अगर बैंक ही फ्यूचर 20 ईयर की इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ की रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं पूरा कर पा रहा है तो इसका भी सॉल्यूशन कुछ गवर्नमेंट को ढूंढना था। तो एक्चुअली सप्लाई ऑफ फंड इज नॉट प्रॉब्लम फॉर इंडियन ग्रोथ स्टोरी। प्रॉब्लम सिर्फ ये है कि पैसा आइलैंड की तरीके से कहीं ना कहीं पड़ा रहा और उसको अब गवर्नमेंट ये चाहती है कि उस जगह डिप्लॉय किया जाए कि जो इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ की स्टोरी का पार्ट बनेगा। तो अब मैं समझाने ये जा रहा हूं कि फंड का तो चलो डोमेस्टिक तो जो सप्लाई है वो है ही, कि पब्लिक सेक्टर्स के पास है और पब्लिक के पास भी पैसा और कहाँ पड़ा है वो मैंने एक्सप्लेन किया। इंटरनेशनली भी इंडिया बहुत बड़े स्वीट स्पॉट पर बैठा हुआ है, क्योंकि जो दुनिया की डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज है, यूएस है, यूरोप है, यूके है, कनाडा है, जापान है, इवन चाइना है, वहां पॉपुलेशन ओल्ड एज हो रही है। एजिंग ऑफ पॉपुलेशन इज देयर प्रॉब्लम। और जब जब लोगों की एज बढ़ती है तो एक चीज क्या होती है, वो एक्टिव इन्वेस्टमेंट से पैसिव इन्वेस्टमेंट की ओर ट्रांसफर होता है। और जब पैसिव इन्वेस्टमेंट इन लोगों के द्वारा किया जाता है तो हमने ऑब्जर्व क्या किया कि उनका ईयरली 2% भी पैसिव इन्वेस्टमेंट पर रिटर्न नहीं है। अगर वो यूएसए हो और कनाडा हो, यूरोप हो और इवन जापान में तो पैसिव इन्वेस्टमेंट पर आपको रिटर्न नहीं मिलता है, बैंक इज चार्जिंग, दे आर गिविंग नेगेटिव इंटरेस्ट। अगर आपने 100 रुपया लगाया है तो आपको दूसरे ईयर 99.25 मिलता है। तो वो जो कंट्रीज है जिनके पास खुद का मैकेनिज्म नहीं है ग्रोथ डेवलपमेंट का और इन्वेस्टमेंट का, वो लोग भी प्रेजेंटली इंडिया की ओर देख रहे हैं। एक सबसे बड़ा एग्जांपल है कि बुलेट ट्रेन प्रोजेक्ट के लिए जापान ने 1% ईयरली इंटरेस्ट से तो लोन दी है। तो कहने का मतलब है कि 1% इंटरेस्ट से भी दुनिया अगर 1 लाख करोड़ दे सकती है तो जो प्राइवेट पीपल है जिनके पास पैसा पड़ा है वो तो एटलीस्ट 2-4% के लिए तो दे ही सकता है, अगर गवर्नमेंट 1% से दे रही है। तो कहने का यह मतलब है कि हमें पैसा दुनिया भी देने को तैयार है। हमारा 50 लाख करोड़ इकोनॉमिक का पार्ट नहीं है, उसको भी हम अगर इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ की स्टोरी में ले आ सकते हैं तो हमारा ग्रोथ और स्पीडी होगा। हमारे जितने पीएसयू है, हमारे जितने ट्रस्ट है, मंदिर ट्रस्ट, कुछ मंदिर ट्रस्ट के पास 1 लाख करोड़ से भी ज्यादा अपना सरप्लस फंड पड़ा हुआ है। तो गवर्नमेंट अभी चाहती क्या है कि भाई हर कोई अगर इंडिया की ओर देख रहा है इंटरनेशनली, अब ये भी जानना जरूरी है कि इंडिया क्यों अभी इतनी ग्रोथ स्टोरी और वर्ल्ड में बजिंग कंट्री है। तो वी आर द फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग इकोनॉमी ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, वी हैव मोस्ट इंटेलेक्चुअल पीपल ऑफ द वर्ल्ड। क्योंकि दुनिया वो एक्सेप्ट करती है कि भाई इंडिया के पास सिर्फ ग्रोथ नहीं है, ग्रोथ के पीछे जो सॉलिड रीजन है कि हमारे पास अपनी इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टीज है, हमारे पास इंटेलेक्चुअल पीपल है, वी आर द यंगेस्ट नेशन ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, इमर्जिंग बिजनेस लीडर ऑफ द वर्ल्ड। हम देख रहे हैं कि हर साल इंडिया से यूनिकॉर्न्स क्रिएट हो रहे हैं, स्टार्टअप यूनिकॉर्न में कन्वर्ट हो रहे हैं और बेस्ट टैक्स रिजीम ऑफ द वर्ल्ड इज गिफ्ट सिटी। हमारी एक ही चीज मिसिंग थी बिफोर गिफ्ट सिटी, और वो थी कि हमारे पास अपना कोई टैक्स हेवन नहीं था। तो गिफ्ट सिटी ने वो भी वर्ल्ड के लिए रिक्वायरमेंट खत्म कर ली। और ये सिर्फ इंडिया का टैक्स हेवन नहीं है, ये वर्ल्ड का टैक्स हेवन है, वर्ल्ड का बेस्ट टैक्स रिजीम है। दुबई ने लास्ट जुलाई से 1 जुलाई ऑनवर्ड्स दुबई ने 10% कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स चार्ज करना शुरू कर दिया है। तो दुबई इज नो मोर नाउ टैक्स हेवन फॉर कॉर्पोरेट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, बट गिफ्ट सिटी इज अ और टैक्स हेवन फॉर फिनटेक कंपनीज। और इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ये समझती है कि अगर आपने फिनटेक को कंट्रोल कर लिया, आपने पैसा मैनेज करना कंट्रोल कर लिया, तो आप दुनिया को कंट्रोल कर पाएंगे। तो फिनटेक में जीरो टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर क्रिएट करना वाया आईएफएससी इज अ गेम चेंजिंग स्टेप फॉर फ्यूचर इंडियन ग्रोथ स्टोरी। तो यहां मैं इतना ही प्रूव करना चाहता हूं कि दुनिया से भी पैसा आने वाला है। अगर हमने म्यूचुअल फंड का अच्छा सब्सटीट्यूट क्रिएट किया तो वो भी 50 लाख करोड़ डाइवर्ट हो सकता है। और गवर्नमेंट ने जो नेसेसरी चेंज किए है पीएसयू इन्वेस्टमेंट सरप्लस फंड इन्वेस्टमेंट के, म्यूनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन के, रेलवे के, तो हर जगह गवर्नमेंट ने वहां भी रिलीवेंट चेंज किया है। अब इंडिया की जितनी भी म्यूनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन है अपने सरप्लस फंड का 10% वो गिफ्ट सिटी के एआईएफ में इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं। तो गवर्नमेंट ने सिर्फ गिफ्ट सिटी को कुछ चीजें नहीं क्रिएट की है, रिलीवेंट अदर लॉ में भी चेंज किया है कि कैसे हम पूल ऑफ फंड क्रिएट करेंगे। अब इंडिया में भी इन्वेस्टमेंट स्टोरीज और पैटर्न ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट विल गोइंग टू बी चेंज। जैसे जैसे हमारी इकोनॉमी व्हाइट इकोनॉमी बनती जा रही है, ऑलमोस्ट हम एंड पर पहुंच चुके हैं, और वी आर एक्सपेक्टिंग इन नेक्स्ट 3 ईयर में अब रियल एस्टेट में भी जो छोटा बड़ा कच्चा पक्का पेमेंट होता रहता है, ब्लैक व्हाइट का पेमेंट हो रहा है, वो 3 साल के एंड में वी आर एक्सपेक्टिंग कि वो भी जीरो हो जाने वाला। अब जब वो भी रियल एस्टेट भी जिस दिन कंज्यूमर प्रोडक्ट बन जाएगा, इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रोडक्ट नहीं रहेगा, तो डेफिनेटली क्या होने जा रहा जाएगा कि जो रियल एस्टेट में भी पैसा इन्वेस्ट हो रहा है, वो भी पैसा आपका एक्टिव बिजनेस इन्वेस्टमेंट में आना शुरू हो जाएगा, और वो पैसा आप फिर तो इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ स्टोरी का पार्ट बनवा पाएंगे। तो ये बेसिकली मैंने प्रॉब्लम एक्सप्लेन की है। अब गिफ्ट सिटी इन सब प्रॉब्लम का क्या सॉल्यूशन क्रिएट कर रहा है, वो मैं इस स्लाइड में आपसे एक्सप्लेन कर रहा हूँ। अब इंडिया की ग्रोथ स्टोरी का प्लीज प्रीतेश से।
Sorry, sir, to disturb you. Sir,
Yes,
few
sir.
of our participants are requesting to have session deliver in English language, sir.
Okay.
It would be better if you can deliver, sir. Thank you.
Actually, I can deliver it in English, but in English, my problem is since my basic study is from Sanskrit and Hindi and Gujarati, so I'm not so much fluent in English. I can speak it, but the real purpose of what I am going to tell you, it may be diluted. So my basic idea is maximum I'm trying to speak now onwards in English. You don't worry. But
Thank you.
my basic idea is not to speak in English. My basic idea is to introduce what is Gift City and what our community will get the benefit from Gift City. So definitely on our participants' request, I will try my level best. But just pardon me if I am going to some part of my discussion in Hindi. So please just pardon me for that. Okay.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Okay, noise. Now, a future requirement of next India's 15 years growth story is what? India needs planes, India needs ships. Yeah, so actually, India needs scale-based investment. If I am going to explain the plane leasing. Right now, India is using 700 planes, and Indian airline sector is using 700 planes. Out of that 700 planes, only 14 planes are for leased from India, and 98% planes are leased from out of India and majorly from Ireland and Dublin. So what the government's problem is, if from similar pattern, if we are going to be get 5,000 planes in next 10 years, India requires 10,000 planes in next 10 years. And if by similar way, if 5,000 planes are also we are going to acquire, then what happens in next 10 years? Our crude oil expense, dollar expense will be surpassed by our lease rental expense of planes. हमारा प्लेन का लीज का खर्चा क्रूड ऑयल को सरपास कर देगा, और ये with this much problem we cannot become an economic leader of the world, or we cannot become developed countries of the world. So what government is planning, like if we want to be a number one in next 20 or 25 years, we should get financing or leasing from India for next 5,000 required planes. Similarly, if want to be a number one economy, we must be a big player of shipping business also. Without shipping business, it is not possible. Right now, at present, our contribution to the maritime business of the world is less than 1%. And if want to be a number one economy of the world, we need to be this 1%. We need to be raised to the 6 to 7%. So ship leasing is also required to be done from India. Similarly, what happens once you are doing any business at low scale, our cost will be high. And if we want to be a to mass production or scale-based project, we require a huge fund to invest in that organizations. So our basic problem is we don't have a pool of fund to provide that pool of fund to the plane leasing. As second hand plane is also required 350 crore to 400 crore. So once you don't have a pool of fund that much, in that case, whatever your policies are there, whatever the things are there, you are not going to buy it and lease it to the our airline companies. So government idea is to do allow to create a pool of fund for this type of purpose. Now here I am interested to compare mutual fund and GIFT City CIF. This slide is most important to understand fund management entity. So I am starting with middle part of this slide, and that is AIF. Now it is very important to understand what is AIF, and AIF is also you can create from domestic law under SEBI. I am not talking about that SEBI CIF. I am talking about GIFT City CIF under IFSC Act. Okay, so what is the difference between mutual fund and AIF? Mutual fund is creating pool of fund, and it is mainly utilized in stock market, yeah, or debt market of the corporations. Normally, mutual fund is investing in corporate sector, whether by it is debt or whether by is equity, and mainly more than 80% it is invested in equity. In that case, uh, they have restricted use of that fund. But we can create AIF from GIFT City without any restriction for any purpose. We can create pool of fund for any purpose, but just required that purpose must be legal where you are investing that money. अगर मैं लीज रेंटल के लिए भी पूल ऑफ फंड क्रिएट कर सकता हूँ, सॉरी प्लेन लीजिंग के लिए भी कर सकता हूँ, मैं शिप लीजिंग के लिए भी कर सकता हूँ, मैं इंटरनेशनल स्टॉक मार्केट के लिए कर सकता हूँ, मैं नॉन लिस्टेड बिजनेस में एज ए इक्विटी इन्वेस्टर के लिए भी I can create my pool of fund. So there is no restriction regarding for which purpose you are creating pool of fund. So what is the difference? This is the difference. क्या आपने अगर म्यूचुअल फंड में पूल ऑफ फंड क्रिएट किया है तो आप एक दो तीन पर्पस के अलावा पैसा नहीं यूज कर सकते। हम पूल ऑफ फंड कोई भी पर्पस के लिए क्रिएट कर सकते हैं। कल हमें मजा आ गया और ऐसा पता चला कि दुबई में एक्स काम करने के लिए अगर हम करते इन्वेस्ट करते तो वी आर गेटिंग गुड प्रॉफिट फ्रॉम दुबई दैट X project, then we can create AIF for that X project also. So what government is interested here? Government is interested to create a pool of fund for plane leasing. So for next 10 to 15 years, if we want to get 5,000 planes, then government's idea is that once we have a fund in our PSU, our government departments, our normal people, as well as international investors, then encourage them to invest in AIF. And once they are investing in AIF, then tax benefit is also there. So if we have a fund management entity retail license, or if someone gets fund management entity retail license from the GIFT City under IFSC Act, then that entity, whatever that entity is on by way of admin fee, by way of entry fee, by way of performance fee, government is not charging single penny out of 10 years, out of 15 years. So fund managers are getting benefit. Here at this point of time, we also need to compare it with banking system. The government also interested to create some alternate of banking system once we want to get a rapid growth in next 10 to 15 year. क्यों ऐसा प्रॉब्लम है? बैंक की एक समस्या है, अगर वो बिजनेस को पैसा देता है ना तो नॉर्मली ऐसा बनता है 50% केस में जब बिजनेस को पैसा नहीं चाहिए तभी बैंक उसको देगा, जब बिजनेस को चाहिए तब देगा ही नहीं। फॉर एग्जाम्पल सम स्टार्टअप्स है, कुछ ग्रोइंग बिजनेस है, तो एट द टाइम ऑफ प्री रेवेन्यू any bank will not finance. And in that case, what problem is arising? The banking system will not create that much boost to get enough speed to make our India number one or number two in next 15 years. So basic idea is why EIF and fund management structure will be more stronger and more useful to future economic growth. I want to prove here. Now, how bank will create the pool of fund? By three ways: savings account, current account, and FDs. And the investor of these banks is not getting any tax benefit. They need to pay tax or whatever their tax slab will be there. Similarly, even banks is also not getting tax benefits. Bank is also going to charge 25% as per their corporate structure. Cooperative है तो I am not an expert of tax planning, so right now I am not aware about this thing. But for a commercial banks, they need to pay 25% tax, and after getting that pool of fund, bank only lend it to someone else. वो लोग लोन ही दे सकते हैं, लोन के अलावा कुछ भी कर सकते नहीं है. तो बेसिक देयर प्रॉब्लम इज restricted use of pool of fund. Now you need to understand what we can create by fund management entity. Fund management entity is nothing but a fund managers who can create AIFs, who are eligible to invest in AIF, domestic client as well as international client, individual client as well as institutional client. तो पूरा वर्ल्ड आपके लिए ओपन है कि उनसे आप इन्वेस्टमेंट रेज कर सकते हो. और मिनिमम टिकट साइज क्या कर दी, $10,000. सो $10,000 इज इक्विवेलेंट टू 8,50,000 rupees. So our average Indian investor is also eligible and capable to invest in GIFT Cities AIF. Now, why they are investing from in GIFT Cities AIF? As they are getting tax benefit from 0 to 10%. अब मैं यहाँ ये एक्सप्लेन कर देना चाहता हूँ कब 0 है, कब 10% है. बेसिक आइडिया इज वेरी सिंपल. अगर इफ यू वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड द रियल गिफ्ट सिटी, हियर गिफ्ट सिटीज वन लाइन डेफिनेशन इज bring the foreign currency from outside. We are not charging income tax. This is a basic one-liner meaning of GIFT cities, special economic zone and IFSCA. If I am getting pool of fund from outside India, and if I am deploying it within India or outside India, government is charging at AIF level 0 tax. Or consequently, your tax will be 0. अगर मैं इंडिया से पैसा रेस कर रहा हूं और मैं इंडिया के बाहर डिप्लॉय कर रहा हूं, अगर मैं प्लेन लीजिंग के लिए पूल ऑफ फंड क्रिएट कर, इफ आई एम गोइंग टू क्रिएट अ पूल ऑफ फंड फ्रॉम इंडियन डोमेस्टिक इन्वेस्टर्स, and if I am leasing that plane to outside India, in that case Indians don't need to pay any single penny tax. गवर्नमेंट उनको 0 टैक्स चार्ज करती है, वहां टैक्स नहीं लगेगा. सिर्फ 10% टैक्स कब लगने वाला है, लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन, कि जब आपने इंडिया से एआईएफ में इन्वेस्ट किया, इफ आवर इन्वेस्टर इज फ्रॉम इंडिया एंड दैट अमाउंट वी आर reinvesting in India, in that case only government is charging short term and long term capital gain. So from this point of view, बैंक से सुपीरियर है. अगर बैंक नीड टू पे टैक्सेस 25% इन आवर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन up to 10 years, we don't need to pay single taxes, any taxes. And from application of that fund point of view, if bank is going to invest, they are regulated by RBI, they are regulated by Banking Regulation Act, they are regulated by their head office, they are regulated by moral point of view. Okay, so what the basic problem is, उनको धंधा करने में परमिशन से ज्यादा रिस्ट्रिक्शन ज्यादा है. और हम जो via mutual fund, via AIF going to invest, we don't have any restriction. This is the IFSCA Act is the only regulator in GIFT City for us. Yes, from tax point of view, we are not part of India. जो मैं सिंगापुर से कर सकता हूँ, जो मैं दुबई से कर सकता हूँ, वो सब कुछ मैं इंडिया से कर सकता हूँ. तो RBI, Banking Regulation Act, SEBI, FEMA, nothing is applicable to me. So in that case, I am getting more freedom to raise the pool of fund due to tax benefit, due to my company's tax benefit, as we are also running our fintech company and we don't need to pay our taxes. So as an entrepreneur, as a CEO of that company, this is a huge benefit for me and encouragement for me to encourage the people from India, from world to the institutional investor. Please give us your surplus funds. We are creating a pool of funds and we can create a buffet table for investors. As every other investment opportunities are single course manner. Mutual fund provides single course. Banks are providing single course. We are creating buffet table. If you are interested to invest in business, we can create business AIF. If you are interested to invest in real estate, we can create real estate AIF, ship leasing, plane leasing, NSE, SMA, SME IPOs, or for any purpose. If we have one good business idea, we can create pool of fund for that type of business idea. So this is the freedom. So this structure is very simple. Fund management entities are the fund managers. EIF is a pool of fund. The person who invests in that pool of fund is the owner of the fund, and only IFSCA is our single regulator. So very easy compliance structure, very easy tax structure. In fact, no tax structure. In fact, as only if we are routing the money from India and investing in India, in that case only we need to pay tax. Otherwise, we don't need to pay tax. So AIF is nothing but the future of the fund management of future fund management ecosystem. और अगर इंडिया यहाँ से स्पीड पकड़ने वाला तो वो स्पीड में जो फ्यूल होगा ना वो फ्यूल विल प्रोवाइडेड बाय एआईएफ. So up to this slide, this is the basic idea. अब this is the word तत्वमसि जो मैंने अभी 10 मिनट पहले बोला. मैंने अपना 10th up to 10th standard my study is from Sanskrit medium and in Sanskrit Pathshala. So due to my Sanskrit study, I need to explain here what is the actually Tatvamasi word and meaning is there. We have 4 Vedas, and out of that 4 Vedas, Sam Veda is regarding these commercial businesses and all these things. And every Veda has their one Mool Mantra. And Sam Veda's Mool Mantra is Tatvamasi. What is the meaning of that Tatvamasi? Tatvamasi, the Tattva which you want to find is within you, Masi. Masi means within you, and Tattva that you want to find. So, whatever India wants, whatever India want to do, they don't need to go into outside of India. Everything is within India. We have enough surplus fund with our individuals. We have enough surplus fund with our corporates, our government organizations. And if we are just utilizing that fund, we can create that pool of fund. And if we deploy that pool of fund as per our prioritized economic growth requirement, then we don't need anything from outside of the world. And that is why I have used Tatvamasi. So the word Tatvamasi is best applicable to Bharat and Indian economy. So what we can do, I have explained here. We can create financial market AI. Now here it is very important to understand what is the monopoly of Gift City, what is the monopoly of AIF, and what is the monopoly of fund management entity compared to Indian domestic tax law and compared to Indian domestic areas. If you are creating, if any Indian or any Indian organization wants to get the benefit of international stock market, then they are not allowed from India. Even GIFT Nifty is nothing but the other version of Nifty. Okay, GIFT Nifty's composition is nothing. It is also 50 companies of our Nifty is replicating the GIFT Nifty's value. And normally Nifty and GIFT Nifty's value is parallel to each other. But any Indian or institute is even not allowed to buy and sell GIFT Nifty. Okay, so as GIFT Nifty is a part of not domestic market, it is a part of international market. So in that case, if Indian want to buy S&P 500 or sell S&P 500 or Dow Jones or Nikkei or Japan's, European or Luxembourg index, no Indian is allowed to participate in that case. So any Indian person or any Indian institution is not allowed to do international trading with hedging tools, with derivative tools. So if someone is interested to do so, then he is only allowed via GIFT Cities AIF. So if someone wants to get international stock markets benefit, here's the only way he can invest in GIFT Cities AIF. And now who is going to create AIF? Those entities which have fund management entities license. So this is the basic monopoly of GIFT City. Now you need to understand why domestic people is also going to invest in international stock market. It is very important to understand. Now I need to compare here. 1 minute. I have created one slide from my team. Yes, this is the slide. Okay. For better understanding of our members, I have just before 10 minutes suggested them to just create a comparative study. Agar if someone is creating domestic AIF under SEBI, 1 minute. No, this is not useful. I am going to explain in another way. Don't worry. Okay. Oh, it's okay. I'm explaining it virtually. It is not issue. If I'm going to create AIF under SEBI, then under GIFT City AIF, and with similar my capacity, if I'm earning 100 rupees by buying and selling some options and indexes. If I earn 100 rupees, then what happen in domestic AIF? I need to pay 42% tax. So my earning is of 100 rupees. In that case, I need to pay 42 rupees out of derivative and hedging business. And uh, I can give my clients 58 rupees, not 100 rupees. At the same time, if anyone opens their demat account, in that case, they are getting notice from SEBI. Out of 10 people, 9 people are making loss, and every average derivative trader is doing 50,000 loss. And in that 50,000 loss, 50% is the transaction cost. And the persons who are making profit, their transaction cost is 15 to 28%. So domestic business transaction cost, minimum transaction cost as per SEBI is 15%. So if I want to get 100 rupees profit, in that case I need to pay 15 rupees transaction cost. So out of my 100 rupees profit, I am giving only 43 rupees to my client. But in gift city, I am going to earn rupees 100. In that case, my tax will be 0 and my transaction cost is 1.5%. Now, why it is 1.5% and why in domestic 15%? As in from gift city, we don't need to pay GST, security transaction tax, stamp duty, कुछ भी हमें नहीं पे करना है. हमें सिर्फ यानी if I am going to buy 1000 Nifty in domestic markets AIF, my expense will be 12,000 to 15,000 rupees. And if I am going to buy 1000 gift Nifty, in that case, my expense will be 1500 rupees, not 12,000 to 15,000. So if I am making 100 rupees profit with similar transaction, here from Nifty and here from gift Nifty, so similar profit, in that case, out of 100 from domestic market, I can give them 43 rupees. And from gift city CIF, I am able to give them 98.5 rupees. So this is the one, not only, there are so many other reasons, but this is the enough reason why we are getting funds from domestic clients, high network clients, those who are investing in domestic market, and why they need to go to the इंटरनेशनल मार्केट. और अगर मैंने इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी से पैसा लेके इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में डिप्लॉय किया तो उनको तो जीरो ही टैक्स है. मैं इंडिया के लोगों का पैसा लेके इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में डिप्लॉय करता हूँ. वंस आई एम इन्वेस्टिंग इंडियन पॉपुलेशन मनी in our AIF, and that AIF, if I am going to invest in international stock market, in that case also 0% tax. So here 0% tax on derivative, here 42% tax on derivatives and AIFs. So this is a huge reason why GIFT City will get huge fund. So what actually we are offering to our investors, if you want to invest in financial security, you have best tax possibilities from GIFT City. If you want to invest in business AIF, you are getting the maximum benefit. Now, what the idea of business AIF from GIFT City? If I am getting fund from outside India, I can invest in India and out of India. In both the case, tax will be 0. If I am getting fund from India and investing out of India, tax rate will be 0. But if I am getting money from India and investing in Indian business, then long-term, short-term capital gain will be charged. Now, what the basic synergy and possibilities of earning possible from GIFT Cities? If we are getting pool of fund in business AIF, and if we are investing it to outside India, what we are compelling to outside businesses? If you are outsourcing 50 to 60% to India, then only we will finance to you as an active partner. So what the business scope, once you are a financer, you are providing the equity to the any businessman, they are compelled to accept our conditions. And what we are doing from our GIFT Cities AIF, once Australia's business wants fund, once Australia's business wants equity, in that case we are examining the only one and only thing कि भाई 50 से 60% तुम आउटसोर्सिंग काम इंडिया करोगे तो मैं पैसा दूंगा. So we are ready to provide you fund. In that case, if I am doing outsourcing work from Gift City or sub outsourcing it to Indian people, any person, in that case, we are not required to pay GST. We are not required to pay any income tax. So we are also getting exemption from outsourcing activities. We are also getting benefit from our commission income. In all that case, what government is interested to allow us, you become global player. Indian investors fund, you need to invest not only in India, they are encouraging us to invest in outside India. So once we are investing outside India, in that case we are earning in dollars, and that dollar will make us a number one economy. अब मैं सेकंड मीनिंग ऑफ गिफ्ट सिटी आपको समझाने की कोशिश यहाँ कर रहा हूँ. व्हाट इज द गिफ्ट सिटी? सपोज माई वाइफ इज पेइंग 10,000 इन एट एवरी मॉर्निंग. 10,000 रुपया मेरी वाइफ मुझे हर सुबह देती है फॉर एग्जाम्पल, और सेम 10,000 आई विल रिटर्न इट टू माई वाइफ इन इवनिंग. And if I am going to do the same thing for next 30 days, so we can say that I am earning 3 lakh rupees and every day my revenue is 10,000. Similarly, my wife can also speak that her revenue is also 3 lakh and every day she is getting 10,000. In that case, my family's turnover is 6 lakh rupees. एंड इट इज ट्रू, इसमें कोई भी गबला नहीं है, हम 6 लाख का टर्नओवर कर रहे हैं. अब नाउ द प्रॉब्लम इज व्हाट, अगर मैं और मेरी वाइफ में से कोई भी बाहर जाता है और बाहर जाके 10 रुपया कमा के आता है पूरे महीने में, only 10 rupees. In that case, 10 rupees, that 10 rupees is more useful to my family compared to that 6 lakhs turnover. So within India, our 6 lakhs turnover is just like within family. अगर मेरी फैमिली को सुखी बनना है, आगे बढ़ना है, तो उसको बाहर जाके कुछ कमाना पड़ेगा. अगर वो बाहर जाके कुछ नहीं कमा रहा है तो मेरी फैमिली में कोई फायदा होने वाला नहीं है. तो व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ गिफ्ट सिटी इन इंडियन इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ? जो बाहर से 10 रुपया कमाना है उसमें गिफ्ट सिटी इज गोइंग टू हेल्प. So actually GIFT City is fund airport. So in future, if any money comes from out of India, definitely it will come from GIFT City. And if any money goes out of India, it will go from GIFT City due to their speed, due to their tax benefit, due to their simplicity of law, and due to their single regulators. So GIFT City will create speed, will create quantity, will create pool of funding at scale. And once the help of that scale-based funding, we are not only applying that fund in India, we are also applying that fund to international businesses also. So what government's basic idea is, we don't need to only create plane leasing for our 5,000 planes requirement. They are encouraging us that you create pool of fund and even these planes to world airlines also. Airlines from Dubai, airlines from Europe, airlines from Singapore and XYZ countries. So government's interest is there. India can be a Dublin. India can be a Ireland. So not only plane leasing, ship leasing, and all business aspects is government is interested to create from GIFT City, and they are providing us equal law, equal opportunity compared to Singapore and Dubai. And why we can beat Singapore and Dubai from this point of view, need to understand. If my office is running with 50 lakh salary expense and 50 lakh monthly expense, and similar business if I am going to do from Singapore, then my cost will be 5 crore rupees. Singapore is the costliest city of the world. Their employee cost will be more. And need to understand, Singapore's fund managers are getting staff from showroom, and I am getting my staff from godown. As India is a godown of human resources, intellectual resources. So Singapore's cost is always 10x than compared to India. and my people and my team will be 2x smarter. So if I'm going to provide fund management service and my competitor is seated in Singapore, my competitor is seated in Dubai, in that case, my running cost is 10 or 1/10 cost. In that case, I will compete with them better way. So what my vision is, we can provide better fund management service than Singapore, than Dubai. Why Dubai? क्योंकि दुबई में भी 10% स्टार्ट हो चुका है और यहाँ जीरो है। तो जहां इंटरनेशनल फाइनेंशियल सर्विस अथॉरिटी की कैपेसिटी कम और जीरो सॉरी कम होने जा रही है, वहीं इंडिया ने तो अपनी गेम स्टार्ट की है। तो वाई इंडिया कैन नॉट क्रिएट ब्लैक रॉक? अब हम इंडिया से भी ब्लैक रॉक क्रिएट कर सकते हैं और वो ब्लैक रॉक बनने वाला है गिफ्ट सिटी से, और वो ब्लैक रॉक बनेगा फंड मैनेजमेंट एंटिटी रिटेल से, क्योंकि फ्यूचर में वही बिजनेस, ओनली दैट बिजनेस विल रूल द बिजनेस और रूल द इकोनॉमी, दैट बिजनेस कैन प्रोवाइड फंडिंग। मैं बोलता हूँ फ्यूचर का राजा वही है जो फंड प्रोवाइडर, और हमें सिर्फ फंड प्रोवाइडर इंडिया का गिफ्ट सिटी थ्रू नहीं बनना है। जो फंड मैनेजर्स इंडिया गिफ्ट सिटी से काम कर रहे हैं वो सिर्फ इंडिया में फंड प्रोवाइड नहीं करने वाले, वो फंड प्रोवाइड करेंगे इंडिया के बाहर भी। तो अगर हमें नंबर वन बनना है तो आई एम कंक्लूडिंग विथ द सिमिलर लाइन कि इफ इंडिया विल गोइंग टू बी अ नंबर 1 2 इकोनॉमी इन नेक्स्ट 10 to 20 years, then gift city will be a biggest fuel provider to that economy. So this is a basic idea. Now here the question is what? What is the role of our chartered accountant community in whatever I speak about all these things? So अब मेरे पास अभी 10 मिनट्स है और ये हमारे सीए कम्युनिटी के लिए सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट बात है, उस वजह से मैं बोल रहा हूँ। आई एम नॉट ओनली द सीईओ और आई एम नॉट ओनली द कॉर्पोरेट एंटरप्रेन्योर। My basic introduction, what I'm always interested to give the people and specifically to our CA communities, my role is of mother in our CA community, as I have produced 350 students and I have completed their CA study. So ये बिजनेस को मैंने 350 सीए बना के दिए। और माँ की एक दिक्कत क्या होती है, अगर बच्चा कमजोर हो या इंटेलिजेंट नहीं हो, माँ का वो दुख नहीं होता है। अगर वो इंटेलिजेंट हो फिर भी उसको उसकी कैपेसिटी जैसा काम नहीं मिलता हो ना, तब माँ दुखी होती है। तो हम सीए लोगों ने पास्ट में एक मिस्टेक की है, वी हैव डन वन मिस्टेक बिफोर 20 years and similar opportunity available to us for next 20 years. What mistake we have done? We are the best player of ERPs and IT business. ये जो रिवॉल्यूशन स्टार्ट हुआ था आईटी का और ईआरपी का, वो 2000 ईयर में हुआ था। तो 2000 ईयर के वक्त हमने इंट्रोड्यूस तो कर दिया था। मैंने खुद अपनी 98 की एग्जाम आईटी एग्जाम दी है, इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी की एग्जाम देके ही पास किया है। तो हमने डिटेक्शन ऑफ एरिया तो कर लिया था, लेकिन हम सीए कम्युनिटी को अभी दुनिया का कोई भी बंदा आईटी एक्सपर्ट नहीं मानता है। मैं इनकम टैक्स की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, मैं इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी की बात कर रहा हूँ। कोई भी पर्सन हम सीए कम्युनिटी को ईआरपी एक्सपर्ट नहीं मानता है, जो हम बन सकते थे। अगर कोई इंजीनियरिंग से आके ईआरपी का एक्सपर्ट हो रहा है तो विदाउट अकाउंटिंग नॉलेज ईआरपी एक्सपर्टाइजेशन इज नॉट पॉसिबल। तो उसको तो अकाउंट भी सीखना पड़ता है, उसको ईआरपी भी सीखना पड़ता है। हमें अगर ईआरपी एक्सपर्ट बनना था तो हमें सिर्फ ईआरपी सीखना था, हमें अकाउंट तो आता ही था। फिर भी हब जर्नी करने की जरूरत थी तो भी हमने नहीं की। क्यों नहीं की उस डिस्कशन में मैं जाना नहीं चाहता हूं। तो हमने आईटी का बिजनेस खो दिया। अगर हम आईटी के बिजनेस में अपने सेक्टर को एस्टेब्लिश कर सकते हैं तो हमारी इनकम अभी 2x तो होती ही होती। हम अगर मैं क्योंकि एवरेज पर्सन ऑफ आईटी इज अर्निंग मोर देन 1,50,000 पर मंथ। अगर वो बेसिकली 5 ईयर एक्सपीरियंस है तो वो कमा सकता है। तो यह हमें क्या समझना है कि जो बिजनेस आईटी का था, जो हम सीए प्रोफेशन एब्सॉर्ब कर सकते थे, हमने नहीं किया। अब मुझे बोलिए, जो फंड मैनेजमेंट का बिजनेस है उसके लिए सीए प्रोफेशन से अच्छा प्रोफेशन क्या है? कोई भी आदमी अगर पैसा कमाना चाहता है, पैसा इन्वेस्ट करना चाहता है, तो टू होम इज गोइंग टू आस्क? We are the only chartered accountants. Okay, so fund management business is of our profession. We are the best candidate of this business. Okay, so what I am always to tell our community, so fund management is the most powerful business. Not only raising fund to get the better return of that investment. In that case also, our profession is the best. So what my suggestion is to our community, and even our institute is very actively towards this thing. तो मैंने जहां तक जाना है, हमारे सीए इंस्टीट्यूट ने वो प्रपोजल गिफ्ट सिटी को दिया है कि वी आर गोइंग टू इन्वेस्ट 200 करोड़ रुपीज फॉर क्रिएटिंग आवर प्रीमाइसेस, जस्ट गिव अस लैंड। और तो लैंड हमें सब्सिडाइज रेट से जब मिली, तो गिफ्ट सिटी में अगर सिंगापुर एक्सचेंज बन सकता है, एनएससी है, बीएससी है, एसबीआई ने अपनी हेड ऑफिस बनाई है, बीओबी ने बनाई है, बैंक ऑफ अमेरिका के 20 फ्लोर है। तो अगर ये पैसे का अयोध्या है, अगर गिफ्ट सिटी इज नथिंग, तो फिनटेक अयोध्या है, तो ये अयोध्या में हम अगर पुजारी, अगर पैसों की बात है तो सीए कम्युनिटी से पुजारी, तो हमारा तो वहाँ एक्सिस्टेंस होना ही चाहिए। तो नाउ गवर्नमेंट एंड आवर इंस्टीट्यूट इज इन कांस्टेंट कोऑर्डिनेशन कि भाई हमें कैसे गिफ्ट सिटी में हमारा रोल क्रिएट करना है। तो नियर फ्यूचर में अगर सब कुछ सही रहा और गवर्नमेंट का और हमारा कोलैबोरेशन सही रहा, तो हमारी भी वहाँ 30 मंजिला बिल्डिंग होगी सीए इंस्टीट्यूट की, और वहाँ हम सेंटर ऑफ एक्सीलेंस क्रिएट करने का इंस्टीट्यूट थ्रू सब चीजें चलने जा रही है। एट द सेम टाइम government is also going to create coordination between CA Institute and IFSC authority. So in near future, IFSC Act will be our part of study. तो अब हमें करना क्या है कि गिफ्ट सिटी अगर पैसों के लिए फ्यूचर में डेवलप होने वाला है, तो वी अवर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, अवर एसोसिएशंस और अवर कम्युनिटी को वो ढूंढना पड़ेगा कि हम कैसे यहाँ एग्जिस्टेंस अपना क्रिएट कर सके, क्योंकि हम एक ईआईएफ क्रिएट करते हैं तो उसका क्वार्टरली ऑडिट करवाना पड़ता है, और वो ऑडिट चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स ही कर पाएंगे। तो अगर 5,000 प्लेन आने वाले हैं, तो 20,000 ऑडिट यूनिट्स गोइंग टू बी क्रिएटेड ओनली फ्रॉम प्लेन लीजिंग। अगर गिफ्ट सिटी से अगले 10 साल में 1,000 ईआईएफ क्रिएट होते हैं, तो वो 1,000 ईआईएफ को भी ऑडिट चाहिए। तो वी नीड टू टेक मोर सेमिनार्स, मोर फिजिकल सेमिनार्स, मोर स्टडी, क्योंकि अगर गिफ्ट सिटी में हमने अपना सीए कम्युनिटी का रोल डेवलप करना शुरू किया, तो ये हमारी इनकम को 2x कर पाएगा, जो हमने आईटी सेक्टर में मिस कर लिया था। तो हियर एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम मैं गिफ्ट सिटी के बारे में ऑलमोस्ट सब कुछ बोल चुका हूँ कि फाइनेंशियल गेटवे ऑफ फ्यूचर भारत, फंड एयरपोर्ट ऑफ द भारत, सिंगल रेगुलेटर आईएफएससी है, फिनटेक्स हेवन ऑफ द भारत टू द वर्ल्ड, एंड वर्ल्ड क्लास इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर। गवर्नमेंट ने ये इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में उसमें अपना टाइम नहीं बिगाड़ता, लेकिन अगर आप सिंगापुर जाओ, दुबई जाओ, या दुनिया के किसी भी पार्ट में जाओ, जो स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है उससे अच्छा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर गिफ्ट सिटी में। तो गिफ्ट सिटी हैज एवरीथिंग टू बी अ number one IFSC of the world. And if our community will participate actively and going to be involved actively, in that case, this thing will become more secure and more speedy. So, यहाँ मैं अपना सेशन कंप्लीट करता हूँ, और प्लीज
Thank you very much, sir.
थैंक्स।
We are having very few questions for you, sir. Can I take it?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, can I have on screen the slide which was heading with the opportunity international scope?
Yes. This one?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, in that one of the participant has raised a question. Rather, it is more related to taxation, as you confess that if it is more about taxation, then this session is not for that. Even though I am trying to have your insight on the question raised by the participant.
Okay.
That as a CPDT is proposing base erosion and profit shifting pillars, whether this thing will be effective with gift city or gift FME.
Please, I am not understanding what actual his question is here.
Sir, I am repeating the question.
Yes, please.
Yes. As CPDT is proposing base erosion and profit shifting, BEPS pillar 2, whether this will be the effective or not, sir?
मुझे ट्रेनिंग लेनी पड़ेगी ये क्वेश्चन समझना। प्लीज शेयर माय नंबर टू हिम, वी विल टॉक सेपरेटली विथ हिम। प्लीज, आई नीड टू पास ऑन दिस क्वेश्चन।
Okay. And sir, one A very key point. The question I was also having:
Yes,
how we
please.
can invest in Gift City?
Okay. Now, this is the question of every Indian. Those who have huge fund or surplus fund like you. Okay. But
Not
mind,
that.
okay. Uh, Actually, Gift City, there are in Gift City two things are there. One is development authority, which is actually related with real estate. Okay. And second part is regulatory authority. The power of Gift Cities comes from regulatory authority. Once you want to invest in Gift City, actually you are not. Uh, if you want to invest in real estate in Gift City, my vision is very different. As with increasing competition, with increasing more corporate players from the world, real estate price will be down in next 5 years by 30% in Gift City. This is my point of view, and I can explain on that thing. So from real estate point of view, I'm not suggesting. But if you are going to invest in AIFs of Gift City, then it provides you full buffet table. Your money will be invested in out of India. Your money will be invested in India, and as per your choice. Actually, we can't create pool of fund and apply anywhere. At the time of point of creating pool of fund, I need to get your permission where you are interested to invest your fund. अगर आपने मुझे रियल एस्टेट के लिए दिया तो मैं रियल एस्टेट में ही इन्वेस्ट कर पाऊँ. आपने मुझे इंटरनेशनल स्टॉक मार्केट के लिया तो मैं उसी के लिए कर पाऊंगा. तो यू आर गेटिंग चॉइस. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, if you are investing 8,50,000, $10,000 in real estate, then itself is a diversification. ये diversification तो हुआ ही. लेकिन that 8,50,000 we are investing in 50 projects of the real estate. So diversification is within diversification. Now understand, with 8,50,000 rupees, how you will get the benefit of real estate? It is near to impossible. 8,50,000 में आज के दिन कोई एक कमरा नहीं बना सकता, तो रियल एस्टेट का बेनिफिट क्या करेगा? लेकिन विथ दैट 8,50,000 he can get benefit of the projects with investment, their profit is at par to developer, क्योंकि हमने डेवलपर के साथ एक्टिव पार्टनर के तरीके से पैसा लगाया हुआ है. तो कहना क्या चाहता हूं कि Gift City will provide diversification to the investor, more choice to the investor with full tax benefit, and managers like our organization and other different organized global organizations are there who are providing their management consultancy with nominal 1.5% admin fee, which you are already paying to the mutual funds. So with investing in mutual fund, you are not getting diversification. You are at sky high prices, and once you want to shift that fund, then we are providing 7 to 8 choices to you to invest your fund. So definitely Gift City will be a great success in future due to this reason, as we are not getting funds from mutual fund investors, we are getting funds from real estate investor, we are getting funds from business investor, equally from domestic as well as from international. Even municipal corporations will be our clients as an investor. So what government's idea is, find the money where it is stored, encourage them, create pool of fund, and do the things which economy requires. This is the basic thing. So what I am suggesting to you, if you want to invest, you don't need to invest in real estate of Gift City. You need to invest in AIS as per your preferences, as per your comfort.
Thank you. And sir, a last question.
Please.
How one can come to know about AIF fundraising fund?
Actually, in Gift City, AIF, anyone cannot create AIF. Once anyone wants to create AIF, first of all, they need to get license of fund management entity. And fund management entity license is of two types, retail and non-retail. So what is the difference between retail and non-retail? Once we have a retail license, our investor's ticket size is $10,000. And if someone has non-retail license, then their minimum ticket size of investor is $1,50,000. So this is the thing. So like in domestic law, anyone create AI. Okay. This is not in Gift City. If someone wants to create AIF, first of all, they need to get license of fund management entity. Then only they can create AIF.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir. for a very insightful discussion for the one of the most sensible and dream project of our Prime Minister Sri Narendra Bhai Modi for this regard. A very small announcement that on 17th of April, on account of auspicious occasion of Ram Navami, the CPE webinar shall observe a spiritual break. There shall not be any webinar on the same date. Now, as a formal conclusion, to convey a vote of thanks for today, I, Pritesh Mehta, feel fortunate to extend a heartfelt gratitude to both the faculties today, CA Kedar Savle sir, CA Swetang Pandya sir, for your very much helpful presentation for professional journey, and I am pretty much sure that the endeavor of CP committee will always make the member of this Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, as Swetang sir has mentioned, Tattvamasi, for all the knowledge and expertise in their professional field. I also extend my wholehearted gratitude for all the participants who are in numbers for more than 350 who has attended this webinar for the professional development. I hope the same encouragement continue for the learning. Thank you very much. Have a good day to you. Thank you.
Thank you.